The evening sky hung heavy with storm clouds, the rain falling in relentless sheets that blurred the glowing city lights into smudges of gold and gray. Lila Carter sat on the cold metal bench at the bus stop, her thin coat clinging to her shoulders, soaked through. Her fingers trembled as she tightened her grip on a faded backpack. Everything she owned was inside. 2 days without food, 3 without proper sleep. The world around her seemed to move too fast, leaving her behind in its wet reflection. A few feet away stood a small girl, no older than 6, holding a pink umbrella nearly twice her size. Its edges drooped under the weight of the rain. The girl's shoes were muddy, her pigtails damp, and her eyes wide with fear and determination. When the wind blew hard enough to tilt the umbrella, Lila instinctively reached out, pulling the child closer and wrapping her worn coat around both of them. The girl looked up, studying her face with innocent curiosity. "You need a home," she whispered, voice trembling but sure. "And I need a mommy." The words struck through Lila's chest like lightning, gentle, impossible, and life-changing all at once. Lila Carter hadn't always lived on the edge of survival. There was a time when her days smelled of antiseptic and coffee, when her dream of becoming a nurse felt just within reach. She'd spent nights studying by lamplight, whispering medical terms under her breath, her heart full of purpose. But dreams have a fragile way of breaking when life demands too much. When her mother fell ill, Lila dropped out of nursing school to care for her. The hospital bills grew faster than she could pay them. When her mother passed away, the silence in their small apartment felt heavier than grief itself. She worked wherever she could, waiting tables, cleaning offices, until layoffs and rising rent cornered her. Then came Darren, the man who promised safety but brought bruises and debt instead. By the time she escaped, her credit was ruined, her spirit fractured, her world stripped bare. Now the city's alleys were her home, and park benches her bed. Still, somewhere beneath the exhaustion, kindness lingered. She shared her last sandwich with a stray dog, offered her scarf to a shivering old woman, smiled at babies passing by. As she watched Sophie clutch that oversized umbrella, something long buried stirred in her. An instinct she thought she'd lost. Not pity, not duty, but love. The quiet, aching kind that demanded to protect, even when you had nothing left to give. Sophie's voice trembles as she explains her situation, the way only a brave child can hide fear behind small words. She tells Lila that she was supposed to wait for her babysitter after school. "Miss Carla," she says, but Miss Carla never came. The rain started an hour ago, and Sophie's backpack is soaked, her notebook pages curling at the edges. Her father, Daniel Hayes, is an architect. "He builds really tall buildings," she says proudly, her lips quivering. But then her tone softens. "He works a lot. He says he has to, since Mommy went to heaven." Lila's heart twists. The girl's shoes squish as she shifts her feet, and her tiny hands shake around the pink umbrella handle. Lila realizes Sophie's been there for hours, alone, frightened, trying her best to be brave because that's what she thinks her dad would want. A bus hisses to a stop nearby, splashing rainwater onto the curb. Lila watches it go, knowing she could climb aboard and escape the cold. But something stronger roots her in place. Compassion. No one else is coming for Sophie. And for the first time in a long time, Lila makes a choice not for survival, but for someone else. The rain turns fierce, hammering the pavement like 1,000 tiny fists. Wind whips through the streets, and Lila realizes they can't stay at the bus stop any longer. Wrapping her tattered coat tighter around Sophie, she leads the girl toward a glowing diner sign at the corner. Inside, warmth and the smell of coffee greet them. The waitress gives Lila a weary look but says nothing as they settle into a corner booth. Lila digs into her pocket and counts the last of her change, just enough for one meal. She orders a grilled cheese and a hot chocolate, telling Sophie she already ate. Sophie takes a bite, then looks up with innocent insistence. "Mommy said sharing makes hearts warm," she says, splitting the sandwich in half. Lila's throat tightens, tears stinging her eyes as she forces a smile. Between bites, she gently asks for Sophie's dad's number. The little girl frowns, thinking hard. Daddy's work is tall and shiny, she says finally. It touches the clouds. Lila glances outside, where thunder cracks over the skyline. She sighs softly, brushing a damp curl from Sophie's forehead. All right, she whispers. Then we'll stay together until we find your dad. Across town, the skyline gleams with office lights as Daniel Hayes stands frozen in his glass-walled corner office. His phone trembles in his hand, the school's voice message replaying for the third time. Mr. Hayes, Sophie never made it home. At first, he thinks it's a mistake. She must be with her babysitter. But when he calls and the number goes straight to voicemail, a wave of dread hits. Within minutes, Daniel's composed, polished exterior shatters. The man who commands boardrooms now stumbles through his office, grabbing his coat and barking orders to his assistant. Call the police, every station, every news channel. I don't care the cost. Hours later, he stands outside in the pouring rain, surrounded by flashing lights and uniformed officers. Sophie's smiling photo appears on local TV screens. Missing child, age 6. Daniel's chest tightens. He sees her gap-toothed grin and remembers promising her he'd be home for dinner. Another promise broken. He grips the photo in shaking hands. This is my fault, he whispers, voice cracking. For the first time since his wife's death, Daniel Hayes, the man who built skyscrapers, feels utterly powerless. The rain finally softens to a mist as Lila and Sophie huddle together inside an empty bus shelter. The flickering streetlight casts long, trembling shadows while cars hiss by on the wet road. Lila wraps her thin jacket tighter around Sophie, trying to block the chill seeping through the cracked glass. Sophie, still shivering, begins to talk, her small voice quiet but steady. She tells Lila about her mother, how she used to bake cookies every Sunday, sing lullabies that smelled like sugar and warmth, and braid her hair before school. Daddy says she's in the clouds now, Sophie whispers, eyes heavy with sleep. Lila smiles sadly, stroking the child's damp curls. My mom used to sing to me too, she murmurs, and softly begins a lullaby her mother once sang when storms frightened her. Before the song ends, Sophie's breathing slows, her head resting on Lila's lap. Lila leans back, feeling Sophie's tiny heartbeat against her arm, a fragile rhythm of trust. For the first time in months, she isn't thinking about hunger, fear, or loneliness. Just warmth. Just peace. When dawn's pale light creeps across the pavement, Lila makes a decision. She'll take Sophie to the police station. But fate has other plans. The fluorescent lights of the police station hum faintly as Lila stands near the counter, her wet clothes clinging to her skin. She explains in a trembling voice how she found Sophie at the bus stop, how she stayed with her all night to keep her safe. At first, the officers listen, but then their expressions harden. One of them narrows his eyes. You don't have an ID, Miss Carter? No address either. Lila shakes her head, her throat dry. I lost my wallet weeks ago. Please just call her father. His name is Daniel Hayes. He's an architect. The younger officer exchanges a skeptical glance with his partner. Ma'am, we've had plenty of cases where people found missing kids. The word found hits like a slap. Lila's heart races. No. You don't understand. She was alone. I was trying to help. Before they can question her further, the station doors burst open. A frantic man rushes in, followed by detectives. Daniel Hayes. Daddy! Sophie cries, breaking free from an officer's side and running straight into his arms. Daniel drops to his knees, hugging her tightly, tears streaking his face. Oh, thank God. I thought. Sophie points at Lila. Daddy, she found me. She kept me safe. Daniel turns toward Lila. He sees the bruise on her wrist, the exhaustion in her eyes, and something inside him softens. Still, the officers hold her back. We'll need her to stay for questioning, one says firmly. Lila swallows hard as Sophie sobs. She didn't do anything wrong. Hours drag by in the cold interrogation room before the door finally opens. A gentle-faced officer steps in and says softly, "You're free to go, Miss Carter. The little girl told us everything." Lila exhales shakily, relief flooding through her. But before she can even stand, Daniel appears in the doorway. His crisp shirt wrinkled, eyes red from crying. He hesitates, then steps closer. "I came to say thank you." His voice cracks. "And I'm sorry for how they treated you, for how I judged you." Lila gives a faint smile. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad she's safe." But Daniel shakes his head. "You risked everything for her. That means something." Outside, the morning sun peeks through the rain clouds as he offers her a ride home. She lowers her gaze. "I don't really have a home." He pauses, visibly taken aback. From the back seat, Sophie's small voice breaks the silence. "Daddy, she can stay with us. Just for a little while. Please." Daniel looks at Lila, at the humility and quiet strength in her eyes, then nods slowly. "All right. Just until you get back on your feet." Daniel clears out the guest room. Crisp white sheets, fresh towels, everything immaculate. But when he tells Sophie that's where Lila will sleep, the little girl frowns and folds her arms. "No, Daddy. She should stay with me. Just until the monsters stop coming." Lila laughs softly, promising it's only for a night. But one night turns into two, then a week. She starts cooking breakfast before Daniel leaves for work, packing Sophie's lunch, humming as she moves around the kitchen. The once silent house begins to feel alive again. At bedtime, Sophie begs for just one more story, and Daniel catches himself standing in the doorway, listening to the soft rhythm of Lila's voice, the sound of his daughter's giggles. One evening, he finds a crayon drawing pinned to the fridge. 3 smiling figures. Me, Daddy, and Lila. The simplicity of it hits him harder than he expects. He realizes how long it's been since his home felt warm, since Sophie looked this happy. Still, doubts whisper in his mind. What will people think? A successful architect bringing a homeless woman into his house. He tells himself to stay detached, but his heart slowly begins to disagree. Whispers begin to circulate, quiet, sharp, and poisonous. Daniel's colleagues glance at him during meetings, exchanging knowing looks. When Lila arrives at the school gates to pick up Sophie, cameras flash and someone mutters, "Isn't that the homeless woman?" That evening, his business partner, Harold, leans across the boardroom table with a grave expression. "Daniel, this could ruin your reputation. Investors are already talking. You can't afford this kind of story. A millionaire and his nanny, or worse, a charity case." Daniel listens silently, but his gaze drifts to the window. Outside, through the reflection of city lights, he can almost see them. Lila and Sophie, chasing bubbles in the garden, laughter echoing like music through the house. For a long time, his career was everything. Sleek offices, high towers, success measured in headlines. But now, those things feel hollow next to the warmth he's found at home. That night, when he hesitantly tells Lila she should start looking for her own place, he means it as concern, protection. But her heart hears shame. She smiles sadly, whispers, "I understand," and packs her worn backpack once more. By dawn, she's gone, leaving only silence where laughter once lived. The next morning, the house feels eerily quiet. Sophie sits at the breakfast table, her cereal untouched, her little shoulders hunched. Daniel kneels beside her and gently asks, "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She looks up, tears brimming in her big brown eyes. "You made her leave," she whispers. "You broke our family again." The words cut deeper than any boardroom betrayal ever could. Daniel opens his mouth to explain, but there's nothing to say, because she's right. He let fear and pride drive away the only person who made their house feel like home. By afternoon, he finds Sophie's jacket missing from the hook. Panic surges through him as he races through the streets, heart pounding. Not again. Not this time. Meanwhile, Sophie, clutching a small hand-drawn map and her stuffed bunny, marches down familiar sidewalks, determined to bring Mommy Lila home. Her tiny boots splash through puddles as rain begins to fall again, echoing the night she met Lila. When Daniel finally spots her across the street, calling Lila's name near the bus stop, something inside him breaks open, the last wall around his heart. This time he won't lose them both. The storm rages again, just as it did that first night, the streets glistening under trembling streetlights. Daniel runs through the rain, Sophie's small hand gripping his tightly. His chest burns with fear and hope as he turns the corner toward the old bus stop. There she is. Lila sits on the same bench where everything began, soaked to the bone, lost in thought, her old backpack by her feet. When she looks up and sees them, her eyes widen in disbelief. Daniel takes a step closer, breathless. "She said you need a home," he says softly, voice cracking. "And we need you." Lila shakes her head, tears mingling with the rain. "Daniel, I don't belong in your world." Before she can finish, Sophie runs forward, throwing her little arms around Lila's neck. "Mommy," she cries. "Please come home." Lila clutches the child tightly, sobbing. Daniel watches, the sight undoing every wall he's ever built. Finally, he kneels beside them and whispers, "She's right, Lila. We both do." They stand, sharing one umbrella on the walk home. Rain falling, hearts mending, and for the first time, Lila isn't walking alone. A year has passed since the night the rain brought them together. Lila now walks the halls of the nursing school she once had to leave behind. Her books new, her spirit renewed, her dream alive again. Daniel made sure of it, quietly handling the bills but never taking credit. At home, Sophie sits at the kitchen counter, swinging her legs and calling out, "Mom! Breakfast!" She proudly introduces Lila to anyone who'll listen as, "My real mommy, the one who found me." Daniel joins them, flipping pancakes while teasing that Lila's coffee could wake the dead. Their laughter fills every corner of what was once a cold, echoing house. And when it rains, the three of them sit by the window together, remembering that lonely bus stop and the moment everything changed. Because home isn't built of walls. It's found in hearts that choose to stay.